thank you everybody for coming. I have to say, you guys are the most intelligent, most enthusiastic, and wonderful fans in the world. And the reason I say that is I started loving movies, being a fan just like you guys. When I saw Star Wars when I was 11 years old, I said, this is what I want to do, and it's great to come full circle and be here with a group of people who can really appreciate movies and how fun it is to be taken and transported to a world that you normally aren't able to be in. And Into the Storm is a movie about what it's like to be in a small town being ravaged by unprecedented number of tornadoes. And I think everybody's seen natural disasters on TV or on YouTube, and you always wonder what would it be like to actually be there when the storm hits. And what we did is we took you right into the eye of the storm, so you're going to be able to be as close as you possibly, maybe you don't even want to be, near a tornado and witness that force and energy and the humanity of what it's like to try to just survive. And so hopefully I brought a little clip here that the editor and the marketing people were very kind to make a special clip just for you guys. So we'll watch the clip and then we can talk about it afterwards, but I hope you enjoy it. So thank you guys. I'm really thrilled that we have 4 wonderful actors today that were able to join us. We had others that unfortunately couldn't make it, but let's give a big round of applause and welcome for Richard Armitage. Deacon. Arlen Escarpeta. And Jeremy Sumter.
So my first question is, where is that set?
The location of the movie? Mm-hmm. It's in a fictitious town called Silverton. Yeah, so it's
I would imagine that's because no real town would be able to withstand the real estate plummet after people see this.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, ironically, we were filming in Detroit, and we were trying to get permission to film with all these neighborhoods, and there was a housing community that was a brand new housing community that half the houses weren't built. So we said if we have those houses that aren't built and we make them look like just destroyed houses, it would fit perfectly. But the real estate agent said, well, wait a minute, we can't do that because the rates will plummet if people think there was a tornado here. It's just a movie, guys.
The way you're handling this, obviously, like you said, we've seen on YouTube now, there's been a rise in people shooting these things, and there's almost after every natural disaster now, you can find handheld footage or captured footage of that stuff. How much of that did you look at? And then how much of that's created what you guys wanted to do in this movie in terms of, okay, we'd love to get that in there, or we'd love to get that kind of beat in there?
Well, what I found is over the last 15 years or so, there's an enormous amount of video on YouTube of natural disasters and tornadoes in specific. And what I learned from that is what they actually look like and how they move and the wind and the rain and the gloominess and all that sort of stuff. So we use that as a guide to say, okay, that's the reality of what it looks like. So now let's try to recreate all of that. And we use what I call a first-person narrative approach, which is handheld cameras. It's not found footage, which is, to me is great for genres that it's used properly, but I think it can get in the way of the filmmaking experience because you're so bound on trying to make it sloppy and you know, when you have a spectacle like a tornado, you want to be able to see it. So if you have just slightly handheld, it makes it feel organic, but yet still gets you into the world that you're watching.
Looking at just the scenes we saw here for you guys, what was the physical end of this like? How much was practical? What did they put you through while shooting these sequences?
I think it was one of the most exciting parts of making the film is that on set.
He's a little bigger than you know, in real life. All I knew is from the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, most of the things we were involved in doing were practical. You see in that short clip that I think it's a 16-wheeler truck that's dropped from a crane, and they draw a line on the ground and said, whatever you do, just don't go in front of this line when you run towards it, and that's real. We were also on wires, 100-mile-an-hour wind machine, rain machine, so most of the time you come away feeling that you've had the experience that these characters have had, that there's some kind of catharsis with actor and character. I never expected that, and I think it's something that you were really kind of keen to push, wasn't it?
Well, I think it worked out well. I mean, I always wanted to make sure everything was safe and everything would be as horrific as possible with the wind and so forth. So I did all these tests with these wind machines, and we did all this tests with the rain. Only problem is when you combine rain and wind, you know, that those raindrops going down are now going 100 miles an hour right into your face. So all these guys
felt like little daggers, actually.
had to put up with that amazing force, and you guys did a great job, though. So.
I didn't remember to heat the water. That was your big problem. It was freezing cold after being left out.
Yeah, we had wet guys.
In my defense, I did say we have to heat the water because I worked on an underwater movie years ago called The Abyss. And I'll never forget being 20 years old, jumping in this pool in 90 degrees South Carolina heat, thinking, oh, it's gonna feel so good to jump in this nice ice cold pool. And it was 97 degrees, and it's like, it's hot. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. But they said, if you're in that for 8 hours, you'll be happy it's 98 degrees. So I told the special effects guys, we need to heat all the water so that the actors don't get subjected to this really cold thing. What I didn't know was overnight, they didn't heat it, and the next morning it was cold, so they turned it on, and it was ice cold water hitting all the actors. All I heard is this scream, I'm like, what's going on? And they're all like, ah!
We had these
I
wet
told them
gowns.
to heat it, you know, don't look at me.
We sobered up pretty quickly every morning.
No coffee needed.
What was the, for you guys, what is the most memorable thing they asked you to do during this, or the most difficult thing you had to do physically during the production of it?
We had a few nights, few night shoots, I think 3 or 4. We basically completely submerged in the water. Me and Alicia Depicari, who plays Caitlin in the movie, and that was some of our biggest scenes. You know, long takes, basically drowning. And I made sure I had a slightly higher ledge than Alicia because I'm a gentleman, so she was drowning just a bit more than I was. Those were tough nights, but great. I think if you do that are tough and difficult, as much as we complain about the cold water and stuff, I think it makes for a better film and a more exciting experience. You know, those are the things you remember.
I think for myself, I can't speak for Jeremy, but we play cameramen in the film, and for me, one of the hardest and the most exciting things was trying to look like a cameraman and, you know, master those angles and move fluently the way they do. And I'm hoping that in the film, Steve, I don't know if you'll tell me, but I hope that some of my footage is accurate.
Yes, they're actually, everybody has a couple of shots that they actually shot that ended up in the movie.
Yes.
Nice.
I don't think I did. Mine was terrible. It was terrible.
For me, it was going against those wind machines that are blasting 120-mile-an-hour winds in your face, while these 2 guys that I don't really like anymore who would throw these piles of dirt and debris and leaves and branches into the wind machines as they come smacking us in the face. And that's what made it great for us, because the actual presence of the tornado, without all that stuff, it wouldn't have been there. And we, you know, these guys, they accomplished that and gave us something really good to work with, to communicate and be able to feel this power of what's going on around us. And although it turned out beautifully and great, it was pretty difficult. But it was, I thank these guys for that, because they made our jobs easier.
We're going to take some questions from the audience here in just a moment. One of the things that is most striking on footage, and I would assume this had to be a big thrill for you guys, fire tornadoes?
You know what, can I speak about that? I tell you, the day around when we were shooting that sequence, I was reading it in the script going, come on, Stephen, this is ridiculous. And that night we were kind of trawling through the internet, and on YouTube there was a fire tornado somewhere in Australia that is kind of unbelievable. And I think it had caught, it was a bushfire that had been caught up into a tornado, and we kind of came in and all looked at the footage. And at every point during the making of the film, there were moments like that, and the fact that that footage was captured on an iPhone or something like that made me realize why this film was going to be so exciting.
Well, let me ask you, Richard, real quickly. You know, you obviously playing these huge, amazing, heroic characters like in The Hobbit. You know, what was it like to now suddenly have to play an ordinary man who isn't a superhero who just has to deal with this extraordinary event? I mean, what was it like as an actor?
You know, one of the things when I was preparing for the role, I was in New Zealand shortly after the Christchurch earthquake, and I remember seeing news footage of guys that had gone to work in the morning and their building had collapsed, and they were carrying out their colleagues into the street and then going back into the building, and it really made me realize that in the course of the day, these guys had been, you know, they were just stepping up to the plate, they were becoming heroes, ordinary people, and that's really the essence of who Gary Morris is. He's just a school teacher that is called upon to become a hero. He doesn't know if he can do it, but he goes in search of his lost son, and it requires, you know, incredible courage and bravery that he just does. Yeah, it's amazing.
And I just want to give a shout out to Sarah Wayne Callies, who couldn't be here today, but she plays Allison, a storm chaser, and you know, again, it was a phenomenal cast to work with, and she was great and does an amazing job. So I can't wait till you guys can see the movie and see her and everybody else in it as well.
She plays my boss.
All right, so first question out here.
Hi, I'm Christy. My question is actually for Richard. My first introduction to your work was North and South, which I loved. I was wondering if you prefer a certain genre now that I've seen you in fantasy with The Hobbit, period piece with North and South, and now obviously modern. And if you have a favorite genre, why is it?
I actually don't have a favorite genre, but I do like working from literature. I think that's always interesting when you've got a source material to go back to and, you know, keep going back to. I've also always wanted to play someone that was based on a real person, living or dead. But with this movie, I think the thrill was finding something which felt very real and that these people wouldn't feel like fictional characters. Going from fantasy into something which is hyper-realistic, hyper-naturalistic, as something like this is really quite fulfilling. So, but in answer to your question, no preferences.
Yes.
Hi, Rich. Hi, guys. I appreciate you being here. This question is for Richard. My name is Cindy. I basically wanted to find out, since you've been doing The Hobbit for so long and you're wearing all that makeup and had the heavy clothes, how does it feel to actually not have to do that after so many years?
I wrapped on The Hobbit on a Friday night when I took all the prosthetics off, and then got on a plane and started work with Steve on a Monday morning in what I thought was a fairly kind of light, easy to work with costume. And then he turned on the wind machine and the rain, and I went from one extreme to the other. But as I said before, you know, I think when you put your character through this situation that you're going to experience as realistic as possible, like we did on this film, and maybe not so much on The Hobbit, there were no real dragons, but I think you really feel like you've connected with the guy, and I think we all feel that we've been put through it at some point.
Well, I know, Jeremy, obviously you started Peter Pan, the P.J. Hogan production, which was a great film. Tremendous production, like the build for that. And obviously The Hobbit, Jackson builds these unbelievable things. This is sort of the opposite, Stephen, where you used as much location as possible, and then you guys then had to introduce the fantastic into these real locations. What was the shoot like for this in terms of on set? Where was the line? How much was real, and then how much did you guys do in post?
We tried to do whatever was directly surrounding the actors practical, and then expand the scope digitally for everything else, because obviously you can't make a tornado for real. But you can have the wind blowing, you can have debris, you can have, you know, like you said, a truck fall right in front of you, and you can have other things like that. You have wire work where people are on, and then you kind of mix it together with some of the digital techniques. So it was a mixed bag.
It looks like it really hid the illusion well. Like at any point in this, it all looks like it is real world.
Yeah. Well, I'm really proud of it. In fact, I showed the movie in its near complete state to Jim Cameron, and he was like just saying nothing but praises of it. It was great because having worked with him for so many years and then finally be able to do a project on my own, show it to him and then get feedback from him and it all being very positive and so forth, it was fantastic. He had a lot of good compliments to say, and it's kind of ironic because he had one suggestion for a little prop to kind of incorporate towards the end. When you see the movie, you'll understand where it comes from, and for me it was just fun because that was sort of full circle from when he showed Titanic to me at a very early stage. I had a suggestion for how to change the ending, and he incorporated that by having Rose drop the diamond by herself as opposed to a different aspect. And this is why I'm telling the story, because Bill Paxton was in that scene originally, so all things lead to Bill Paxton.
That is true. That is absolutely correct.
You played his son, and you played with Bill as well.
I played Bill's son in Frailty. It was his first time directing. It was my first time acting, so it was great to see him today.
And Max was in Hatfield McCoy.
Yeah, I played one of his sons in Hatfield McCoy a couple of years ago.
It really does all come back to Bill.
Yeah.
It comes back to Bill.
Yes.
Hi, really nice seeing Peter Pan all grown up. Yes, I am going to focus on Richard, but that's because I work with theonering.net. So hi from everybody from the One Ring. Speaking about doing literature, you're doing The Crucible in London this summer, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Awesome morality play. So my real question though is, I know you're a Tolkien fan, it's kind of why we all love you. When you were a child reading Tolkien, was there a character that you saw yourself in back then?
I was always fascinated with Gollum. The book was read to me in primary school, and I remember the school teacher doing just the most incredible impression of that voice, and Tolkien describes it so brilliantly, and I'd go home and try and do it myself. And then I was in a stage production where I was playing an elf, but I was always covetous of the guy that was playing Gollum, so probably Gollum. Andy Serkis is in the building, I couldn't
Yes.
For whoever wishes to answer, I was just curious what it was like to be on the set when it was all full and it actually looked like a disaster scene.
I remember going to the scene where they had the car lot, and we got there and everything was kind of all neat and nice, and then after lunch I came back, everything was destroyed. It was just like it took a turn, and that was a day where we had the fire tornado. So for me, it was just, I was playing with all these flipped cars and just, you know, like a child in a candy store. Just like, I loved it. It was exciting for me. It was cool to see what a natural disaster looks like. And
I showed up that day.
And you had some great stuff at the school, the stuff at the school.
Yeah, we showed at the school.
We
You
guys were all at school, yeah, there's some cool stuff there.
I showed up on that car that day. I wasn't working that day, but I was knocking about, so I went. And there was people driving around. It was at a school. It was at university.
Yeah,
we
we went to a
college. Yeah.
Yeah, and a woman drove past me, and she just, what happened here?
Yeah.
No idea.
I'll never forget, because as director you want the most destruction and you want it to look like post-tornado-like. And I had to deal with the guy who was in charge of making sure we didn't damage this building. So he's walking around with me and I'm saying, okay, we'll put all this debris here, and he's looking, and he had no idea what we were gonna do, but the art department put plywood and then made it look like the wall had collapsed and all this, and he came in and he looked and he said, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, don't worry, it's fake, we'll be okay when we're done, we'll just clean it all up. But,
I never told that woman what was going on, so she could be in a bunker somewhere, just like,
There was a PA who was specifically attached to me because, you know, I'm like a wild child, but it was like, where's Jeremy? Oh, he's in a flipped car somewhere. So it was, I had fun on that set. It was a lot of fun.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay, just a quick thing. I want to say this. And a question for Richard. Did you write backstory for this character?
like you do for some of your others?
I did actually. There's a kind of little family story which was quite important for where we were taking the two boys and the father. There's a mother that's died and they're trying to hold their family together. I also went and met an American high school teacher just to find out how that was going to be. And even though you only glimpsed it very briefly, I just felt that it was important to root him in somebody real and something that would feel like Middle America. So yeah, I did do a little bit.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for bringing the footage. It looks tremendous. And congratulations on surviving.